Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Lowdown on Low Code. And this is going to be a really good one. Hey, John, how often do I lead off the podcast by saying this one's going to be a really good one?
Most of the time, because they are really good.
Most of the time, every time. But that being said, this is going to be a really good one. So we're back here with some old friends. So I'm Rob Koplowitz, obviously here with John Reimer. Also here with old friend and longtime colleague Julie Osk, who's been with us before and is with us again. How are you, Julie?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Well, thanks for coming on the podcast and thanks for all the work we've done together. Because what we're here to do today is to announce some new research that has been done jointly between Analysis.Tech, all of the team at Analysis.Tech, and Ask Advisory, which is where Julie finds herself now. And this is I think it's really interesting research. I think it's really timely research, right? So I think the group here, we're really old, I mean, Julie's not as old, but John and I are super old. Julie's getting there. And we've been through a few cycles of this stuff. And look, this stuff always happens in similar ways. And I think we're seeing this whole pattern today where it's like, well, this AI stuff, it's failing all over the place. And we really believe that there's a way to approach this, which is based on some, some really strong evidence we have of having done this many times in the past. That's applicable here. We spent a lot of time putting into the form of research specific to deploying AI specific to deploying it around the certain, use cases that we're most familiar with. But maybe let's start off with you, John, and say, so are we surprised that we see MIT citing 95% failure rate?
No. We are, as we always do, as you say, Rob, we've been through these tech adoption cycles many, many times. Those of us that are up in years. And there's always that initial period where people are literally fumbling around to try to figure out how to apply the technology and get business value out of it. And there's a lot of very theoretical, very optimistic, it's going to change your life kinds of guidance and talk out there that people get a little distracted by. At the end of the day, this stuff is the reason we apply this stuff is to solve problems. And I think Rob, what the MIT study and others like it identified was kind of lost track of that. What if you're going to solve business problems? They don't necessarily change your life. They may make your business better, and they're just problems. Let's not as you're one of your favorites saying, don't get too far out in front of your skis.
Right.
Focus on solving problems, and I think we all have great confidence that there's great potential here to solve business problems with this.
And it's technology, right? There are things that we have to do with technology. I think one of the things that really struck me about the MIT study was the number of pilots that weren't moving into production because they hadn't done some simple due diligence around governance and risk and compliance and privacy and things. Julie, you have led us all of us, the collective us, the world, through a couple of major technology shifts, right? Through certainly, one of the leading voices on mobile, really sage advice that helped people get through that. Similar around notifications. And this is where you've been spending your life now for a number of years. And mostly you came up with a framework here that I think is really valuable. Can you describe it to the listeners?
Yeah, Rob, thank you. And I think, to give this context, right, when you brought up the MIT study, they said, hey, there's a number of reasons most of these projects don't scale. One of them is, of course, data. But one of the things that's very close next on the list is just choice of use cases. And so, like with previous transformational technologies, whether it was cloud, but, more on the consumer side, things like mobile and the computer, what we're hearing a lot from clients is senior level executives saying, we got to do AI. We got to go in on AI. We need an AI strategy. We need to invest more in AI, right? And we see it in the headlines in the paper. And what this methodology is that the three of us put together is really saying, well, wait a second. Technology isn't the first decision you make. It's the last. you first have to start with the human beings that are using it. Are they comfortable with the chat interface? Are they capable of writing prompts? Do they have the critical thinking skills to discern like fact from fiction? Do they have the patience to iterate and to learn and to train these systems? And that's what we call the H or human of the what we're calling the host methodology before having really clear business objectives, the O, putting together a robust strategy like what are the use cases that we think make the most sense right now given the capabilities of the technology, and then after we've done all of those steps saying, okay, well, is gen ai or is ai really the right technology for this use case to support our objectives, and is it something that human beings, whether they're consumers or employees, will use?
So,
Right.
Julie, I want to stay with you for a second because I think there's a piece of this research that I mean, just I think blew John and I away. If I could speak for John, and it's and again, it really reminds me of your approach towards mobile
Mhm.
all those years ago, where you were identifying, look, this is an amazing use of mobile. Like, not everything's going to be mobile, but this is really transformational. This is what the term mobile moments that
Yeah.
you had.
Yeah.
You defined a number of use cases that are in the document that really give people these crunchy starting places. Like, this is actually a really valuable place to start. We're going to gain efficiencies. You're going to have effectiveness of the experience. Can you walk us through that? Because I think that is really kind of the heart of this research.
Thank you. Yeah, and Rob, it comes from a place of I feel like there's been a lot of what I call like a very supply side or vendor side driven conversation that's dominating the media about what Gen AI can do. It can summarize, it can analyze, it can write, but just not many of us wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I'd like to classify some information." Or I'd like somebody to summarize my text messages, right? And so what I did was is I did a research study on behalf of a client that analyzed everything that was being funded, for an entire calendar year with AI. So it's very research based. And I would tell you of the, thousands of companies we looked at, 80% of them certainly are B2B, and that makes sense right now. But when we did a deep dive into the B2C and the B2C categories, it really emerged that there are six things that I say that Gen AI gives to consumers. One of them is personalization. With its ability to form memories and create context, it can really create relevancy for us. The second thing is superpowers. And when I say superpowers, this isn't about efficiency. Like there in 100 years, I'm not going to learn to compose music or create videos or draw cartoons, but really enables us to do things we were just never able to do before. It creates convenience for us. It just allows us to do tasks much faster than we could in the past in some cases. It gives us access. There's a lot of people that can't afford legal services or may not have access to something because they live in a rural area or they don't speak the language. So it creates access. The fifth category is what I call comfort. There's a lot, and it's kind of mixed results on what we call virtual companions, but somebody who can comfort us or give us a sense of security or, hey, everything is going to be okay. And then the final category is what I would call interactive entertainment or education, is when we really want to lean in and engage with content for one reason or another. It can adapt to us, whether it's my reading level, my language, my speed, whatever it may be. So it's those six things.
Rob,
Personalization, superpowers, convenience,
can I just
access.
So,
add on to what Julie said? So these are this is really, in my view, this is really profound. This gets you out of, oh, customer service is a good place to apply AI. Well, hold on, for what? There's been a lot of really mixed things happening in that area. This framework allows you to think through real crunchy benefits. And what I wanted to say, Rob, was that one of the things we did in the paper was apply these concepts to business cases. Julie is absolute genius at consumer cases. Um, we then work together to figure out, okay, what does superpowers mean in a business context? What does entertainment, education, et cetera, mean in a business context? And you know what? There's a ton of opportunity, and it's all in the paper.
and it's all really well laid out. Now, we do live a little bit in different worlds. John, I think live in an overlapping world with Julie, but a little different. We think about some different things each day. And John, I want to kind of shift gears to you got to implement these things, right? And there's a whole bunch of things that we have to give consideration to in building these things out in an enterprise. And, when developers have to build these amazing AI moments, I don't know, coin the term right now. John, what are some of the things that we highlight in the paper that kind of go down that path?
Well, thing one is security, compliance, essentially evaluating the risks and rewards, and the costs become part of the equation, the evaluation as well, of ideas. The thing is that we really believe that a lot of the good ideas for how to apply AI will come from the grassroots, will come from business people who just recognize an opportunity to do things better, do things more accurately, et cetera, et cetera. We've had guests on the podcast that talked about their personal experience with this, but a lot of these folks are business people who do not understand risks. They don't understand security. They don't understand scalability. That's not their job. Their job is to do business functions, and this is where IT pros who are really trained and have the experience required to really do a hard nosed evaluation of risk and reward uh, for any given idea. And Rob, kudos to you and our colleague Rick Greenwald for coming up with, I think, a really simple but powerful set of exercises that you can walk through, and it's all on the paper. You can walk through and really quickly just assess any given idea. Um, Another critical point is, should we use AI at all? I mean, many business processes and problems are rely on deterministic algorithms. These are algorithms that, given common input, they give you the same output. Uh, Generative AI does not do that. It'll give you different answers at different times, and that's a disaster.
And if you go through the list of things that Julie gave in her best case use cases, those were all things where you said, you know what, the best guess based on somebody, on an artificial intelligence system that can consume way more information than I can consume it much more recently, can spot trends in a way that I will never be able to do as you. Those are all use cases that lend themselves to probabilistic outcomes. They're not always bad, right? But
Right.
there are people in the organization who really truly understand where and how deterministic fits in, where versus probabilistic, where opacity is required versus transparency.
Well,
And
and, and when the
look,
CEO
we're
says,
really old, so I'm gonna come up with one more really.
so, sorry, I
Go
was
ahead,
just
John.
saying, and when the CEO said we got to do AI, and you get people who say everything is going to be done using generative AI algorithms, somebody's got to stand up and say no, um, not everything. Let's find the best things.
What would Rob say in that instance? What would Rob say? Rob would say, poppycock. That's just poppycock. And it only takes a moment to realize that. I mean, let's look at Taco Bell. It only takes a moment to realize that there are some really bad use cases where you can apply AI and have really bad results, life threatening, types of scenarios.
By the
The
way,
other old man
expensive. It could
card,
be expensive, by the way. Also, like, let's not forget
it's
Oh
that.
yeah,
way more expensive than any
oh
other way of solving the problem.
Well,
yeah.
yes.
And Julie, on multiple fronts, right? Not only costs, but environmental costs of this is just a stupid way to solve this problem. It's three-step conditional logic. Just like really seriously, why am I burning NVIDIA chip time on this? I'll throw out one more old man term, one more old person term, which is we build out a really useful RACI chart. Nothing shows your age by mentioning a RACI chart. But these are organizational decisions. I was at the writer conference earlier. They're doing really interesting things, and they're doing them in really highly regulated environments and really high risk environments, and oncology examples and such, and they're doing it well. But one of the things that all the guests there were talking about was you got to get the organization involved. You've got to get legal. All the people that John was talking about, security, privacy, get these people on your side when you're starting. Make sure the use case is aligned with their requirements. For the enterprise, they're not going to be blockers. They want to be a part of this, but they want to make sure that it's done properly. And that was, again, as we started off with mentioning the MIT study, the biggest issue in terms of pilots not making their way into production. You just weren't doing the due diligence that we've always had to do with new technology rollout. So, guys, we don't want to spill all the candy here. The document, don't what they used to tell us in sales. I was in sales for like 9 months after college, and boy, that was not a good place for me to be. They used to say, "Don't spill your candy in the lobby," right? You got to make sure that you're continuing to add value. And the document, it's about, it's not our shortest document. It's about 20 pages, but it is packed with information. A lot of research went into this, and you can find it in 2 different places. So you can find it at Analysis.Tech. Check us out. It's where we put all of our research. You just got to sign up to get it. And you can find it at
julieask.com.
Spell it.
JULIEASK.com.
julieask.com. Where'd you come up with that? That's a great name.
I know.
And
Ask
what is
Julie.
the cost of
Ask
what is
Julie.
the cost
Even for
of
an
this
isn't it?
research guide? It's free.
Your
Uh,
email address. It's free. Yeah, it's free.
Yeah.
So, Julie, if you ever have an AI generated bot out there, I guess you just call it Julie, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's super easy. Like, everybody has all this whole thing about how they name their bots. All right,
Also a little
folks,
like
check
being a
us out.
Brazilian. I'm just Julie. Like I'm that I would love to be that famous that I'm just Julie. Yeah. But
I mean, you live in a world with like Julie Andrews. How does that for showing your age? So I don't think you could be just Julie. Check us out, julieoff.com, analysis.tech. Thank you, everybody.
thanks, guys.